Pawan Verma is one of the country's top political thinkers. And where do you come out on whether we head towards more inclusion or far greater exclusion? Pawan.
I am not one of those who is a proponent that we are heading towards some kind of extinction of democracy. Yes, there is a threat to it. पर एक गालिब की लाइन है, हर बुलंदी के नसीबों में है पस्ती एक दिन. In every pinnacle's genes lies the seeds of its own defeat. And Indian politics is dynamic. If you ask somebody in 1971 about Indira Gandhi and that she would in 4 years be forced to impose an emergency, most people would have said she is Durga, she will never be defeated. The same would apply to Rajiv Gandhi, where in 84 with 404 MPs, if anyone then asked him whether in 89 he would be fighting to win, people would dismiss it. So I believe the inherent strength of India are its people and its democracy, and we should never underestimate them. That's point number one. So no leader, no party is invincible. Secondly, I believe that in the future, however much a government seeks to impose what my good friend Rajiv calls quasi-authoritarianism. Autocracy. Oh, you changed it.
He's preparing a book, sir.
Quasi-autocracy. I think there is something called an authoritarian democracy, where democracy becomes the means by which within a constitution like that of India's, you can have an absolute majority in the Lok Sabha and a manageable majority in the Raj Sabha, and you can pass laws which would otherwise be difficult to pass. But my own prediction for the next 5 years is that any political party which becomes so individual-centric on only one individual, where even in the campaign today the party is not mentioned and only a guarantee of an individual is mentioned, will ultimately also face the challenge when there is once again another charismatic face, another narrative, another strategy, and another level of organization. Now, one point I wanted to respond to Sudhirji. Yes, there is a need for the reappropriation of a culture which had been neglected. And I have written a book called The Great Hindu Civilization where I seek to do it. But if this process becomes one of majoritarianism and the exclusion of the other minorities in this country, which are in sufficiently large numbers, if excluded to cause endemic instability, I believe the growth story that India wants also will be affected. There is a dynamic link between economic growth and social harmony.
Well, I want to go across to Sushant Sarin and get a sense of how you see the Indian state evolve over the next 5 years. We've heard some good shades, we've heard some areas of concern. From your perch, Sushant, or from your position on the table, where do you see India go? Tell us what we don't know, what we can't see in our front view. If you want to stand, that's
just a slight aside. There are as many Muslims living in my colony today as were living 20 years back. And it's the good thing about what is happening today is that at least everybody is recognized that there was a neglect of Hinduism in this country, that they were pushed against the wall, and there's a reaction taking place. Some people can't handle it, other people are quite comfortable with it. But yeah, where is the state going? I think the state has become far more effective. The ability of the state to deliver goods on the ground have become far more effective. If I am not mistaken, it was Venkat who had told me just on the eve of the last election results, and he was very prescient at that point of time. He predicted it almost to the T. And the way the state has started touching the lives of people who were neglected. Votes were taken in their names, but they were neglected. I think that that delivery system has become far more effective. We've all been journalists, at least most of the people in this room. And we have this habit of picking up outliers and then making it out to say that, look, because this exception has happened, this whole scheme is flawed. Exceptions will always happen. But I think if you look at the larger picture, the state has become far more effective. It's become far more responsive. When was the state, and incidentally, we're talking about all kinds of riots, people seem to forget the kind of pogroms which used to take place when we are a very secular, progressive democracy. And there's a state in the east of India where post-election violence should have ashamed everybody, but many people kept quiet at that point of time. So I think what is going to happen is that the state is going to become touching the lives of a lot of people. What my fear, however, is that while I think there's a greater degree of economic realism which has come in, I think the economic policies are moving in the right direction. I'm not so confident about how the international situation is going to play out. And that is a matter of some concern because the international system is going to be in very, very serious flux going forward. We don't know what's going to happen. We probably know what's going to happen in the US come November.
What will happen in the US in November?
Probably looks like Trump is going to be sweeping the polls.